The Long Walk is our third and not even final Stephen King movie adaptation this year. We still have The Running Man in November, and it's directed by the one and only Edgar Wright, who gave us this beautiful scene.
Is God here?
You know what? He just left.
But so far, I think we're 3 for 3 with these Stephen King movie adaptations this year. So The Long Walk takes place during a dystopian alternate reality America where 50 teenage boys from each state are randomly selected to take part in a deadly annual walking contest, where they're forced to maintain a minimum pace or be executed until only one person remains. Oof, geez, that was a mouthful. The first real positive I want to toss this movie's way is that it just gets right into it. The movie starts and within like maybe 5 minutes, the boys are walking. All right, the movie's just going and there's no downtime at all throughout the entire movie. And I love that. I love a movie that just knows what it is, knows what people want, and gets right into it and does it happily and does it competently. That said, the general framework of this movie is that most, if not all of it, is just characters walking and talking. Literally, I mean, that's the entire movie. It's just a bunch of different characters walking in a straight line and talking until there's only one person left. Now, obviously, there's comparisons to be made between this and other dystopian, I don't know how to describe these other movies, dystopian survival horror stories. I mean, that's basically what they are, right? You know, stuff like Hunger Games and Battle Royale, The Hunt, The Platform, The Belko Experiment, etc., the list goes on. And The Long Walk hits all of the familiar beats, you know, exploring things like violence, the threat of a totalitarian regime, the role that an individual citizen might have in times of political upheaval, those kinds of things. But the advantage here is that The Long Walk was first. Stephen King actually wrote this way back in the late 1960s, so it's kind of like the grandfather of this type of genre. Of course, at the same time, it was more so interpreted to be about the Vietnam War and the televised draft at the time. But here in this 2025 adaptation, those themes feel just as relevant. You know, it's like a jacked up mirror held up to contemporary America. And, you know, a lot of people will say things like, this is more relevant now than ever for stories like this, you know, books, movies, or shows like this. But the reality is, they were just as relevant then. That's why they were written. And they feel just as relevant now to us because maybe things haven't changed all that much. But that's a whole other discussion for another time in another video on another channel. Going back to the premise, the concept of an entire movie being just characters walking and talking couldn't work if you didn't have great performances to watch along the way. And so let's talk about David Johnson as Peter and Cooper Hoffman as Ray are unquestionably the standouts here. Let's start with David Johnson, who, I mean, everybody's been saying it, but this guy's going to be a movie star one day, if he isn't already, and he's 100% going to win an Oscar one day. He had an amazing breakout performance in Alien Romulus. I mean, he was easily the best part about that movie, and for me, he's the best part about this movie too. He's just fantastic. Whatever issues I might have with this movie, and we'll get to those in a second, they come from no fault of his own. He is awesome here. Cooper Hoffman is also great. He's our main character, and we see the entire movie from his perspective. I mean, we basically never leave his side, with the exception of a single sequence, and I thought that he was really damn good. Maybe his performance doesn't quite stand out as much as Johnson's does, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but every single moment that I loved in this movie still rode on the back of Hoffman. And interestingly enough, throughout the film, there's constant mention of his character's father, Ray's father. The film explores how his dad is no longer around and how he left a deep impression on Ray and how much he looks up to his father. And hearing him talk about his dad in the film came across deeply personal to me, considering, you know, Cooper Hoffman's father is Philip Seymour Hoffman, who we tragically lost back in 2014. And ever since Cooper Hoffman started appearing in films, there's been this incessant need to compare him to his father. Obviously, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman is like one of the best actors to ever do it. I mean, this dude was just electric, had seemingly infinite range, and he stole every scene that he was ever in, undeniably. But comparing a man who's been a legend in the game for decades to his son who's been acting for a fraction of that time feels unfair and honestly gross. And The Long Walk feels like it's tapping into that in this almost meta way that I found really interesting and poignant. And I think that stuff also comes across in his dynamic with Judy Greer, who plays his mother in the movie. And listen, I love Judy Greer. I've said that multiple times on this channel. I think I've actually mentioned it in the video that I'm most proud of making on this channel. So please go watch that. It's a subtle plug there. But again, you know, Cooper Hoffman's performance feels incredibly personal in relation to Judy Greer's. I very well might be reading way too much into this, but that dynamic between mother and son, again, considering the loss of his father both in the movie and in real life, feels real. It's almost like I'm watching a real person and not a character. Cooper Hoffman feels like he's exploring very real things that he experienced in this performance. And, you know, again, Judy Greer is great, and she's part of some of the moments that really stuck with me. Particularly one at the end is just, there's a moment at the end, man, that's just so devastating and it's brutal. Oh my lord. That I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. That moment in particular really stands out to me. But those moments are kind of few and far between, and we'll get more into that in a second. Mark Hamill's here too. Kind of. I mean, I don't know. It feels like a thankless role, to be honest with you, similar to something else that we saw recently in, say, Eddington, for example, with Emma Stone or Austin Butler. Like, yeah, the performances are good, but they're barely in the movie, and they more so feel like these personifications of certain themes and messages rather than actual living, breathing characters. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying how it feels and how it reads. Now, as for... Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and roses for The Long Walk, and it seems like I'm in the minority yet again with my movie takes because people are loving this movie, but for me, it felt like this movie should have had a lot more bite than it did, and it feels like it should have been a lot more stressful than it really was. Now, was I entertained? Absolutely, for sure. I mean, that's always nice. You want your movies to be engaging, you want them to be entertaining, but I didn't find myself all that emotionally invested in many of the characters or what was really going on, at least not as much as I wanted to be. Which, again, isn't really a good thing when your whole movie is just characters talking. If I'm not invested in the characters talking, unfortunately, a lot of the talking doesn't hit as much as I want it to. A lot of the runtime felt like it was supposed to be suspenseful and tense, but it really wasn't for me, and I can't exactly pinpoint why. It's kind of just a feeling that I have in my gut, which maybe isn't a great explanation. Listen, like I said, the performances are great, but the dialogue, like the actual conversations between the characters, like what they were talking about, I couldn't fully get immersed in it. I couldn't really get roped all the way in, I guess. Maybe if I see it on another day, it'll hit me better. But as of right now, I think my feelings, or perhaps lack thereof, for The Long Walk stem from a combination of things, those being Francis Lawrence's direction and JT Mollner's script. JT Mollner delivered one of my favorite movies of last year in Strange Darling, so naturally, I was pretty excited for this movie. And, soon he'll actually be helming the next Texas Chainsaw TV show, which actually sounds pretty awesome. But hey, the script for The Long Walk largely didn't do a lot for me. Aside a couple of seriously standout moments towards the end, I rarely felt anything other than entertained, I guess, while watching this one. So, like, for example, just recently I watched Scorsese's The Departed for the first time, which I know I'm very late to the party with this one, but, they have the Regal month of masterpieces thing going on, so they re-released it in theaters, so I caught it there. I mean, it's like one of the only huge Scorsese movies that I haven't seen, but I bring it up because I was so violently stressed out during that movie, and I genuinely can't remember the last time I saw a movie that stressed me out that bad. And I'm not trying to compare the two. I mean, The Long Walk and The Departed are nothing alike. I'm merely just getting at, I'm not some stone cold, emotionalist guy, okay? I can get emotionally invested in a movie. It's just that this one didn't do much for me. And I don't think it's the movie's fault per se. I think it's just my personal opinion on the premise, I guess. Like, knowing that everybody's going to die kind of hurts a lot of the tension and the suspense in the movie for me. Does that make sense? As for Lawrence's direction here, I don't know. It felt maybe a bit too slick and maybe a bit too clean. To be honest, I'm not terribly fond of his previous movies, so I guess you can add this one onto the list as well. This movie just wasn't as dark or as gritty as I maybe wanted it to be, which is odd to say because the whole movie is, again, watching a bunch of kids shit themselves and then get shot and killed. That sounds pretty grim, but it wasn't grim enough. Jesus, that sounds jacked up. I sound like a psycho saying that. Oh my lord. But still, Lawrence here, for me, somehow adds another movie under his dystopia for babies belt. It's kind of what it feels like a little bit here. I'm sorry. That's maybe a little too harsh, but that's an honest read. And perhaps that's an unfair bias for me because I associate a lot of Stephen King adaptations with Castle Rock Entertainment. A lot of the movies produced by them have this very distinct feel and vibe that this movie is sorely missing. I actually felt like the previous two adaptations that we got this year with The Monkey and The Life of Chuck actually feel like they belong in that Castle Rock Entertainment catalog much more than The Long Walk did. And I don't mean that to sound like it's a knock on the movie. It's not. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Listen, beyond all that though, objectively, it's a great year to be a Stephen King fan, man. I mean, we've gotten 3 solid movie adaptations this year, and even though I wasn't in love with The Long Walk, it's still a solid watch. But then you add The Monkey and The Life of Chuck into the mix, and it's like, damn. Which I need to shout it out. The Life of Chuck is amazing. It is such a bummer that movie did poorly at the box office, and no one's still really talking about it. It hasn't really caught an audience yet. It's fantastic. And it also has Mark Hamill in it in a much bigger role, which is kind of ironic now that I think about it. Mark Hamill stars in 2 Stephen King adaptations in 1 year. And on top of all of that, like I said at the beginning, we're getting another adaptation from Edgar Wright in The Running Man and the It prequel on HBO Max. Stephen King fans are eating good. And as of the time of this recording, I just saw the news that JT Mollner is also doing another Stephen King adaptation down the line with The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. I mean, I guess Mollner's also a fan of Stephen King. Jesus, there's a lot of Stephen King shit coming out. Overall, guys, listen, The Long Walk didn't exactly wow me, but it's still a solid watch. If you're interested in it, I would recommend it. Check it out.
You might get more out of it than I did.
And with that, more videos to come, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and comment, please. It really helps me out. And I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.